Here's some of what Judge Neil Gorsuch said Monday during his opening statement.
Of course, once in a while we judges do disagree. But our disagreements are not about politics, but about the law's demands. Let me offer an example. The first case I wrote as a judge to reach the Supreme Court divided 5-4. The court affirmed my judgment with the support of Justices Thomas and Sotomayor, with Justices Stevens and Scalia in dissent. Now that's a lineup some might think unusual, but actually it's exactly the sort of thing that happens quietly, day in and day out in the United States Supreme Court and in the courts across this country.
Carrie Severino is Chief Counsel and Policy Director of the conservative-leaning Judicial Crisis Network, and she joins me now from Capitol Hill. Carrie, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Elaine.
So what we heard today from Judge Gorsuch seemed to really be an emphasis on the Supreme Court being separate from politics. But as you well know, Democrats are still angry about what happened to President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland, never getting a hearing. Do you think Democrats would actually filibuster this particular nomination of Judge Gorsuch?
Well, we saw from their opening statements today, they certainly are trying to build a case for that kind of gridlock that Senator Schumer certainly seems to be favoring. But you also saw people on the other side of the aisle, like Democrat Senator Michael Bennet from Colorado, and like Obama's former acting Solicitor General Neil Katyal, both of whom were strong supporters of Garland, both of whom were frustrated and mentioned during their opening statements that they were frustrated that he hadn't been confirmed, but they offered strong support for Judge Gorsuch, saying he's fair-minded, saying he's a very independent judicially, and Katyal's someone who's currently suing the Trump administration. He says he thinks Gorsuch would be excellent and would give all sides a fair shake. So I think they're going to have a hard time building the case for that gridlock.
Well, Senator Ted Cruz said that Gorsuch's nomination has a, quote, super legitimacy because so many lawmakers and voters got behind then candidate Trump due to the Supreme Court vacancy. I wonder, in your view, is Judge Gorsuch's nomination in and of itself the fulfillment, essentially, of a promise made to conservatives?
Well, this is one of President Trump's most important campaign promises. As you pointed out, it was something that voters overwhelmingly approved. More than a fifth of voters said the Supreme Court was their #1 issue, and those voters voted decidedly for Trump. That's very unusual, probably historic levels of interest in the Supreme Court. So I agree, there's a real mandate for this, and it's a campaign promise that Trump is fulfilling it big time now.
Well, former President Obama's Supreme Court nominee, as we mentioned, never got a hearing, and because of that, there were certainly some very pointed remarks from Senate Democrats. What are you expecting to hear from Democrats over the coming days?
Well, they previewed a little bit of it. There are people that are frustrated about Garland and the Senate Republicans' decision to wait till after the election to move on that hearing. They also talked about, they cherry-picked his record a little bit, and I think it's pretty easy to make a comeback to that because Gorsuch just has to look at his own record and point out the many decisions he voted, say, in favor of employee rights or in favor of women's rights, et cetera. And that finally, they also are trying to get him to talk about issues that maybe we'd all love to hear about, like his opinion on abortion or his opinion on Trump's immigration action or, frankly, Obama's immigration actions. Those are things, unfortunately, he can't ethically comment on because they're likely to come before the court. So we won't have answers on all the questions we'll want to, but I think we'll have a good opportunity to delve into Gorsuch's own record and his approach to the law.
And Carrie, I wonder if you could just give us a little bit behind the scenes, too. Even before the hearings began for Judge Gorsuch, the judge was already up on Capitol Hill meeting with various lawmakers. Tell us a little bit about that process. More than 70 lawmakers so far.
Right. He had a chance to meet with 71 of the senators, a pretty good chunk of them, right, and went through. And so all of the senators that he met with, not just the ones in the Judiciary Committee, have had an opportunity to ask him some of these questions. I think that's a really valuable opportunity for them to get to know him, maybe to see behind some of the partisan, talking points that just operate on the surface, really get to know him as a man, because I think everyone who's operated with him, especially the people who know him best, who've either practiced before him or have worked closely with him, will say what a fair-minded, articulate, balanced man he is and how committed he is to the rule of law and to approaching the law in a non-political way. So I hope he was able to reassure some of the senators that are concerned about those issues when he met with them personally.
All right, Carrie Severino of the Judicial Crisis Network, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Agreed.